Thank you so much for joining us this evening to learn about the University of Medicine and Health Sciences in our President's webinar. My name is Sean Powers. I'm Vice President for Admissions at UMHS. Along with me this evening is our Director of Enrollment Management, Sham Daria. Sham will be the one pulling the levers and pushing the buttons behind the scenes and helping me out in the Q&A section as we answer your questions. We'll answer each one of them that you type in. My background, I've spent my entire career, which is now 26 years, in admissions work. But for the last 18 of those years, I have been working for medical schools with prospective medical students. So happy to be here and speak with you all about UMHS. Also joining us this evening, we certainly can't do this without members of the campus community, the university community. With us is Dr. Craig Eyre. Dr. Eyre is the Assistant Dean of Student Affairs, our Associate Professor of Molecular Sciences as well, and he also manages to find time to be the Chair of Research. Good evening, Dr. Eyre. Looks like we need to get you a new headshot.
Yeah, I gotta update that one a little bit. I'm a little more aerodynamic than in those days. But it's my pleasure to be here with you all this evening. So as Sean said, I'm a professor down on the island in St. Kitts. I'm also helping out from time to time with our admissions and recruiting team. When I'm not on the island, I'm usually on the east coast of Canada, sort of visiting at universities there to speak with prospective students because I'm Canadian. My background is in immunology, and I sort of fell accidentally into genetics as an immunologist. So I would be happy to talk to you about what it's like living on St. Kitts, what our curriculum looks like, and any questions that you might have. Thanks for spending your evening with us.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Dr. Eyre, for taking some time out of what you can see is a very busy schedule with wearing so many different hats. Also joining us this evening is Dr. Matt Michaud. Dr. Michaud is our Director of Main Operations for our campus up in Portland, and you'll hear about that and what we're doing up there in that bridge semester. He's also an Associate Director of Academic Support and Learning Development, so it will be very important to hear from him about the tremendous amount of student support activities that are happening at UMHS for our students. So good evening, Dr. Michaud. Good to see you.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm looking forward to talking a little bit about some of the advances that I think that we make in medical education. And I think one of the biggest things is that we've refined learning so that people do well on their national board exams. And what we learn with step one, we transfer to step two, and folks take that again, that knowledge and ability to working with step three. So hopefully I'll be able to talk tonight some about that.
Excellent. Well, it's good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. We certainly can't do these either without students or alumni. And this evening, we're fortunate to have with us two of our distinguished alumni. We have Dr. Well, you see on the left there, Dr. Kirthi Suganathavan, who will be here as she's wrapping up a shift right now. So we'll introduce her when she arrives. But also with us, Dr. Tendai Marume. Dr. Marume, second year of residency, PGY2 in internal medicine in Philadelphia at Jefferson Health. Originally from Zimbabwe, but earned his bachelor's degree up in Nova Scotia, Canada. Good evening, Dr. Marume. Great to see you. Thank you for taking some time. Some of the little bit of free time that you have and sharing it with us and our audience.
Good evening, everyone. I look forward to sharing my experiences with you, just not only about the journey to getting into medical school, but my journey with UMHS and how they have given me the opportunity to pave the way to match into my dream residency program, and just kind of share my experiences of how I've been able to use my skill set that I've learned along the way to be able to practice medicine and continue my training. So I look forward to meeting everybody and talking to everyone and sharing my experiences.
That's great. Thanks so much for Dr. Marume. On behalf of our audience, I know that they appreciate it. So as we go through during the course of the presentation this evening, you'll see there's the Q&A section at the bottom of the screen. So make sure to use that, and we'll be answering every question in writing. And at the same time, we'll be picking a few of them to share with our panelists and get their take on your questions. So what are we going to talk about this evening? Well, certainly going to be talking and touching on a number of different topics throughout the course of the presentation. We'll certainly be talking about, and hopefully you come away with an appreciation for why looking at a place like UMHS is an important thing to do, why an alternative option for you when there are so many medical schools in the US and Canada, why looking at an alternative option is important, because the sheer number of students who are applying still remains far larger than the number of seats that are available at medical schools here at home. Talking in great detail about the program at UMHS, faculty interaction with students, how that works, what that looks like, student support, resources that are available, preparation for licensing exams, preparation for clinical work and going through the clinical side of the program, preparation for applying for residency and those outcomes. We'll talk about those as well. Talk about life in St. Kitts, as Dr. Ayer mentioned, what it's like living there, where our basic science campus is located. You only spend 16 or 20 months, in St. Kitts, but obviously that's a good deal of time. And, living in a new place, what's that like? The adjustment, we'll talk about all those types of things. Again, talking about outcomes, what does it all lead to? Tremendous residency placement results, as you'll be able to see on our website. We'll be talking about them directly with people who have gone through residency selection process and have come out the other end very successfully. And after we get through all that, you'll really just want to know how you can apply to join people like Dr. Marume, who you just heard talk about briefly his experience, and you'll hear much more from this evening. So we'll talk about the admissions process. We'll talk about how our tuition is affordable and represents a great value for you. But as you no doubt noticed, the title for the presentation this evening is the President's Webinar. So we certainly can't do this without the president of UMHS. And so without any further ado, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to introduce President Warren Ross. Good evening, President Ross. Good to see you.
Hello. Hello, everybody. I'm really excited to be on this call. This gives me, kind of an opportunity to share with all of you, what UMHS is all about, what we stand for, what our goals are, our mission, why we developed UMHS. And I try to talk a little bit about every aspect of the university, as Sean was describing in his presentation. What I generally like to do is just kind of start off with my background and experience. So my dad and I established one of the first offshore medical schools back in 1978 called Ross University. And we grew it at that time into one of the largest institutions, one of the largest Caribbean medical schools. At the time, we had affiliations with over 40 teaching hospitals. We were recognized by the U.S. Department of Education. We had thousands of graduates that are licensed and practicing throughout the United States and Canada. And we were affiliated with over 40 teaching hospitals. And I tell you this because, it shows and tells you that we have quite a bit of experience in developing offshore medical schools. And we took all that experience to develop UMHS. So we ran that for many years, Ross University. And then my dad decided to retire, but he kind of kept an eye on what was going on in the Caribbean. And he realized that, many of the schools were getting excessively large, bringing in class sizes of 300, 400, 500 students a semester. And it was becoming harder and harder to provide that quality education, that personalized education, which I thought was very important. And we thought that students really do need an alternative to these very large institutions. So that was the premise behind why we established UMHS. And it was with the goal of not developing a Caribbean medical school, but developing a school that was comparable in every way to a U.S. medical school. And the difference was that when we established our first school, we had limited resources, limited funds, little experience. And this time around, we had unlimited resources. We could do whatever we virtually wanted. We had the funding, we had the experience, we had the knowledge and know-how to establish what I consider to be a premier medical school, but with the objective of keeping it small, intimate, personalized, what you would expect if you attended a U.S. medical school. Because the bottom line is that when you have a small school, you can develop the resources that you need to succeed academically. So first and foremost, we wanted to develop a campus comparable to what you would expect at a U.S. medical school. So Sean, as I'm going through this, you might want to just kind of flip through the images of the campus, but we really established a state-of-the-art medical school, from the fiber optic backbones between all the facilities to our learning management system, which is cloud-based, to our anatomy lab, which is really just cutting edge, and comparable to some of the best anatomy labs you would expect in the United States. But what I like about our anatomy lab is that many of the Caribbean medical schools have moved away from a traditional anatomy lab just because cadavers are becoming harder and harder to get. With a small school like ours, we're able to not only have developed a cutting edge anatomy lab, but we maintain a 6-to-1 cadaver ratio. Those other schools that, what separates us from other schools is that the other schools have moved towards plastinization or digital anatomy lab. And it's not the same, especially for those students who are thinking that surgery is something that they would be interested in. To actually be able to dissect a cadaver is really an important part of a medical education. So once again, very cutting edge. You can see the monitors that we have above each one of the workstations, and those are connected to the podium where the faculty member is teaching, and they could utilize PowerPoint presentations, or they could switch over to a high resolution camera for a prosected cadaver. And as you're dissecting, that's focused on what you should be looking at in your cadaver, and the faculty member can talk you through your dissection. We also circulate not only a large number of faculty in the lab, but we have a number of TAs who are honor students, who were previously in anatomy, working with the students during the dissection. We have a beautiful anatomy lab, not only an anatomy lab, but a auditorium, traditional auditorium. We have traditional multi-purpose laboratories. We have a research lab down at the bottom right-hand corner. And we really, the bottom line is that the resources that we have, the facilities that we have, the utilization of technology in all the classrooms, from high resolution monitors to the PowerPoint presentations, to the cloud-based learning management systems, to our simulation lab, which is comparable to what you would expect if you attended U.S. schools, where we utilize a variety of high fidelity simulators, including iStan, as well as we're about to purchase Sim and 3D, which is one of the more cutting edge simulators in the United States. It really is, cutting edge. And beyond the simulation, you utilize this virtual hospital for Introduction to Clinical Medicine 1, where you also get to work with professional patients, and work amongst your student body, utilizing also the high fidelity, low fidelity simulators, and also have access to local medical facilities, such as the local hospital, where students make grand rounds and have opportunities to work with real patients. So the beauty of the facilities is it really is comparable in every way, and we've proven that by our accreditors. So when our accreditors come down and review us, one of our accreditors is ACCM, it's an accrediting body out of Ireland, and they're recognized by the U.S. Department of Education because they've adopted the LCME standards of accreditation. And when they come down and they review that, one of the important parts of their review is looking at our facilities, and they have to be considered comparable or equivalent to facilities that you would have in the United States. And we have that recognition and approval from our accreditors. The other aspect of not only having a really solid facility is also the bringing in the high quality faculty that are currently teaching down there. And we're very, we do a lot in terms of how we vet our potential candidates for faculty. And we want faculty that love to teach, are dynamic, good communicators, and are dedicated to assisting you and helping you and making sure that you perform at the utmost level all the way through your academic program in the basic sciences. And the way we vet new faculty is we have a team put together, a committee that reviews faculty, make sure they have the appropriate credentials. They have either a PhD or MD. They have many years of experience working at a medical school level. And once they get through the initial review, then they are invited down to St. Kitts, where they give a presentation to the students as well as to their peers. And they're evaluated both by the students and the faculty. And they produce a survey, which we utilize to determine whether or not this candidate is an acceptable candidate for the institution. So the students now become part of the process in terms of who we hire for faculty. But bottom line is they're dedicated to you. They love to teach. And they're very engaged in ensuring your success. And how do we do that? Well, not only are the faculty involved in teaching, but they're also involved in mentoring, tutoring, office hours. And after each examination, you have 3 block examinations. After each block, any student who's at risk, who didn't perform well on the block examination, is required to meet with the faculty member to go over the examination, look at their strengths and deficiencies, develop an action plan to ensure that they remediate any deficiencies they may have. And then they are then referred to our learning specialists and or counselors for additional follow-up as needed. So what I'd like to do is bring in 2 people to talk a little bit about our faculty and then also about our learning specialists, because I think they're both critical to ensure your success and your performance. And one of the things I'm very proud of is that, and really sets us apart. The goal of anybody who's on this call right now is ultimately to become a physician. And you want to go to a university that's dedicated to you and has the resources, which is not only it's the faculty, it's the learning specialists, it's the counselors, it's all those other things that ensure your success. And we as an institution are proud that we have probably one of the lowest attrition rates in the Caribbean, somewhere around 4%. When I talk to our creditors, one of the concerns they have about many of the institutions in the Caribbean is that you're seeing attrition rates that could be as 30% or higher at these institutions. And so that means that, when I look at my students, when I do my orientations, I can honestly look to the left, look to the right, I'll see you at graduation. Many of those other institutions can't do that. And by the time you attrit out, you've also amassed a huge debt and you not have achieved your goal. So, go to look at an institution that's really there for you, is dedicated to you to ensure your success. So I'll start off with Craig. Craig's a faculty member down in St. Kitts. Maybe, Craig, you could talk a little bit about our faculty and, what they're like. And then Matt, you can talk a little bit about the learning specialists and what they do for you.
Yeah, I would be happy to. Thanks, Warren. So, as President Ross said, the job of a faculty member at UMHS is first and foremost to be dedicated to teaching time or student contact time. So I just kind of want to walk you through what it's like being a faculty member here on the island. So I'll just start with myself. The whole reason that I even work at UMHS is because I got a PhD, and when you go through the PhD training process, everybody sort of expects that you want to be a researcher. And I didn't. What I wanted to be, and what I was even before that time, was to be a teacher. And here's a group of individuals who said, hey, look, we want you to come down and be a fantastic teacher. We're going to take all this other stuff off your plate. Your job is to be good at the teaching part. And I was thinking, well, this is too good to be true. So that's why I'm down at UMHS. So here's what it's like to be a faculty member. I want you to compare to your undergraduate time. If you take a faculty member in the United States or Canada, A full teaching load, a full course load for that faculty member is usually 3 hours a week. So on average, a faculty member at UMHS is going to teach 2 to 3 times that amount. And so that means your contact with all of your professors goes up 2 to 3 times. What does that mean for you as a learner? First, you get to know me. You get to know how I teach. We get to spend the time together to develop that professional relationship where I know where you're strong, I know where you're struggling, and I can make changes to my classroom in real time that better allow my learners to succeed. So just as an example today, I had quizzes today in my genetics class. Immediately after the quiz, I've got time to actually stop and go through the questions from the quiz to see where people hit right or wrong. I had time to go back to lecture slides and specifically point out exactly where the quiz questions came from. And that gives people the opportunity to see not just how I teach, but how I turn what I've taught into testable material. It gets them an insight into my head. So that's every professor. Imagine what that does for your ability to get contact time, to get mastery of your material. So first 2 to 3 times the amount of contact with each faculty member. That's right off the bat. Every faculty member at UMHS either has a PhD or an MD. We all have done either our residencies or our postdocs, which means we have specialization inside of an area, and every faculty member has teaching experience specifically at a US or Canadian med school that teaches to the USMLE system. So every faculty member has the experience to be able to train you for exactly the thing that you want to be. And so my concept of being a faculty member at UMHS is very different from the teacher-student relationship that you have as an undergrad or even in graduate school. This is not a classroom where the students are passive and knowledge trickles down to you. This is a mentorship. What's happening here is that you are surrounded by individuals who have achieved the career that you're hoping for. And what they want to do is show you how to get there. And so they're going to model that behavior with you. They're going to model their success for you. They're going to give you the suggestions, the pitfalls that you can look out for. They've taken the tests that you want to take. So that means everybody in there is tailoring that educational experience specifically to what you want to accomplish. And so that's a mentorship. And that's showing you not just the knowledge that you need, but how to develop into that person. That's something that cannot be replaced by any other educational experience. So not only is it time, but it's also the professional background. I'm a specialist in immunology with a subspecialty in genetics. That's a really unusual combination. So what does UMHS have me teaching? 65% of the genetics course, 65% of the immunology course. I get to teach my specialty. That's what you're going to find with every faculty member. We have placed them in their areas of specialty so that you learn exactly from an individual who's qualified in that area and has the experience to teach that area. So yesterday in immunology, I was teaching very specifically the pathology of cancer diagnosis for pediatrics patients, because that is one of my areas. I was a diagnostic individual for pediatric cancers. So that's it. I taught that class pediatric diagnostics, even though it's a little bit beyond where they are in the curriculum. But you can tailor your lesson to specifically hit, this is where you're going to go in another 2 semesters. Every one of your faculty members is a specialist in exactly that way. So what did I do after class? Well, the first thing is I have a student who has been coming to see me. They're not in my class. They're actually 3 semesters ahead of my class now, but they're still coming to see me because they have a personal situation that's off the island that they want help navigating. And so I've been providing some support and some counseling to them over the last couple of weeks. Why am I doing that? It's because I know them. It's because they feel that they have a relationship where I can provide advice to them that they need. So imagine doing that with any one of the professors that you have now. So that's what I've been doing since the last 2 weeks. After that, I had my regular office hours. So I met 4 additional students from my class this time. We sat and went through quizzes. We went through lecture material from the last 2 or 3 days. I provided study suggestions on how to create something called mind maps, which is a way of taking text-based information and turning it into a visual diagram for somebody who's a visual learner. So your faculty have experience in creating different teaching and learning strategies that respond to you. I'm an audio-visual learner, so text-heavy information doesn't really do it for me. I'm not a really great memorizer, but if you can let me make a picture out of it or a diagram or a flow chart, I've got it forever. So I helped take slides and turn them into pictorials for one of the students. And they're going to come back and see me tomorrow to have their pictorials evaluated and see if they've missed anything. That is very in-depth, very detailed, very individual-oriented sessions. That's just with my class. On top of that, I have 20 students who are assigned to me as being their faculty mentor. So that means that these are individuals who are in any semester, anywhere in the program. They can come to me with any question that they have. So that could be personal, academic. That could be, when does the grocery ship come in? Because, hey, we're an island, everything gets shipped here. By the way, it's Tuesdays. So the students who are in EBS 1, the first semester on the island, I say, hey, you want to go get the freshest things, the best selection? Go Tuesday night. That's advice that you get from living on the island. That's every faculty member is assigned to students in exactly the same way. So that is what it looks like to be a faculty member here. That's the level of student support that you can expect. On top of that, I am the coordinator of our TA and tutorial program. So that means we have about 20 students right now this semester who are in upper classes that have the qualifications to be tutors and TAs for lower level classes. So they take their time, they run their tutorials by faculty members, get advice, get feedback. They present them as peer teaching opportunities to other students. They become accessible with their own office hours. So we provide mentorship not only directly to students, but also for you to develop opportunities to develop your own teaching and learning and communicating strategies. Because think about this, you as a physician, your primary job is to be an educator. And it may not feel like that, but you're going to spend most of your time, especially if you're in primary care, you're going to see between 20 and 40 people a day. And your primary job is going to be taking very, very high level information and communicating it to them in a way that they understand and they know why you're taking the steps that you're taking with them. So all of these activities that you're doing with us and that you're seeing us model are the same activities that you are learning that you will do with your patients. So this is even a career development system that we have here that's even kind of going on in the background that you don't even think about. So that's to give you a little bit of information about what it's like being here. As President Ross said, students are very involved in our hiring. So we're going through right now, we're always looking for new people who might want to come down and can give us something new and exciting. So they come in, they teach a class. The students all give feedback on that class. And that's the very first thing that's evaluated by our senior administration. Then they meet with faculty members and they discuss with our course directors. Then they meet with a panel from our faculty where we get to ask them any questions that we have about how they teach, how they design their classes. All of that feedback goes to President Ross and our senior administration so that we can make the absolute best decisions for who we bring in to our students. On top of that, we also have a robust visiting faculty program where we can bring in specialists or individuals who can bring something new that maybe they're not a full-time faculty member here, but they can give us new perspectives, or they can give us new connections into hospitals and universities where our students might want to go when they leave the island. So all of this becomes available to you as a student at UMHS. And just in case you didn't see, Sean put in our chat, if you've got any questions for us, use the Q&A system. We can't respond to you through the chat, but if you've got any questions, we're all happy to respond to you through the Q&A.
Thanks, Craig. What I'd like to do is bring Matt on. So Matt, what is the role of the learning specialist? We have learning specialists not only in Maine in your fifth semester, where Matt is, but we also have learning specialists down in St. Kitts that works directly with you. Matt, maybe, and a lot of what they're trying to work on is everything from reading comprehension, time management, test taking skills, communication skills, which is all very important in terms of your performance and your outcomes. So the goal always is to improve your scores, improve your performance, improve your outcomes. So Matt, maybe you could talk a little bit about your background coming out where you came out of Arizona and what we're trying to achieve both in Maine and St. Kitts.
Sure, I'd be glad to. I was a learning specialist at two other medical schools, and one of the things that I think that we help students do is we have people give feedback, and we we give people feedback in a way that helps them improve. I get feedback in the morning when I shave, and I wonder if I get my face as clean as I want to get it. So we get feedback just looking in a mirror and looking to improve. And that's what I think as a learning specialist, we give feedback on personal skills, time management. Are we looking at what is urgent versus what's important in med school? Often on the island, when we're getting used to the pace of medical school, the pace goes so fast that we tend to get distracted in some ways or get over impacted. Most medical students that I've met, they are under the false story that they have to be perfect at everything. And I think the feedback that we give people as they're developing is that developing is a great place to be. Developing is improving constantly and consistently so that we're not having to risk our health. We're not having to risk our wellness while we're in medical school. In particularly in the main program, I meet with students that are for the first time, they've learned how to read and study very, very well, handle the material, keep up with the pace of the material, but now they're putting everything together. And I say that I'm helping them put not only each subject area that they have in the basic science, but combining that with clinical skills so that it becomes I say it's like a salad that we get as much as we want that keeps us healthy in the salad. But it's again the pace of the material because people become very, very focused on what they're going to do and comparing themselves with what a score in step one is. We know that in our model of learning, passing step one is kind of like the golden chocolate bar to going on to the clinical sciences and learning that work in the hospitals. But the preparation is so important of how we prepare in Maine in looking at how to use a question bank and looking at then figuring out how we improve when we're learning a new system of learning. We don't want to just read our material and think that we're learning. We want to move things from short-term learning to long-term learning. so that then with anything that comes to us, we're able to have a way into that question, or into that question that's on the test in a way that's successful for us. I get to travel to St. Kitts periodically, and on one of my trips down to St. Kitts, I sat beside a 14-year-old baseball player, and he said, "Do you have any advice for me as a baseball player?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I want you to throw a lot of pitches." And what I want medical students to do is in the same realm. I want them to answer a lot of questions, very sophisticated questions, learning how to break them down, to know what the author is looking for, so that material is um, manageable and shows all that the student has learned. I met with a transfer student today. It was supposed to be an hour meeting, and we ended up talking about 90 minutes. And I get to meet with each of the transfer students before they come to our main semester. And he had no idea what a learning specialist was. And I had such an enjoyable conversation with him because he said things like to me, "You mean that the school gives you a question bank?" And I said, "Not only does our president give one, he gives two. And I'm going to teach you how to use that." And two very important resources for how you're looking at how to break down questions. And then I said, he's going to give us a review of the material that we've just covered, that we spent 2 years learning. And I think things know it, but we're making it, I think that students know it, but they're making it accessible to them in their brain so that they immediately know it. And it's not about having to go back and reread what they read, but it's a matter of active learning and learning in the review systems how to access where things are stored. And in fact, thinking more thoroughly, um, maybe glycolysis is one pathway, and his partner pathway is gluconeogenesis. And maybe not every detail is remembered about glycolysis, but knowing gluconeogenesis, we're able to get into that pathway and answer questions that we didn't even know that we knew the answer to. And that's the work that I do individually with folks. I enjoy working with students as a learning specialist in large groups and small groups. I work with them with doing questions, but the individual work is most rewarding for me. And I saw with this transfer student today, he had no idea that there was such support at a school. And we ended our conversation by saying, "I know that you're going to thoroughly enjoy um, your time in Maine. Know that you're going to thoroughly enjoy putting a big uh, package around all the material that you've learned in your first 2 years." And I think he said back to me, he said, "I know that it's a different place than my school that I'm transferring from. I know it already from the work with the admissions." And he said, "I saw that again today, that I'm seeing that this is a special place." And I really think that Maine is a special semester for people because you get to work with a learning specialist one-on-one. There's no judgment, and I have no process for folks. There's never any, "You should be doing this." I threaten actually to steal people's birthdays and to steal their middle names. I said, I've got a vault in my room and that I'm going to keep those. They like the corniness of it, but they like that however they're at and they meet with us in Maine, that they're growing already. We have midterms this week, and I had a student that I was helping her prep for the midterm on Friday, and she said, "I can't believe I've learned this much already in 6 weeks." And I said, "You are an aspiring physician already, and understanding your success is how we begin to build on that." And so a learning specialist gives feedback, looks with people's success, and really builds their confidence that they're going on in the process. sorry that my throat is a little off tonight, but I enjoy talking with you and I'm open to any questions.
Appreciate it. The only criticism I have, Matt, is adjust your camera a little bit so we can see the rest of your head.
Oh my goodness, you saw my bald spot?
Very good. Thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you.
Moving on, just want to mention that, we have a traditional curriculum. Once again, it's been reviewed by our accreditors. It's comparable to what you would expect if you attended a U.S. medical school. But our goal is to weave into every one of our courses clinical materials, because USMLE Step 1 is really more clinically oriented than it was in the past. So starting in your first semester all the way through, we have clinical material in every one of the basic science courses. We've mapped the curriculum to USMLE. One of the things that we've done that's a little different from many other schools is that, we started off with block examinations. So there's 3 block examinations per semester for each course. But to keep students engaged and to have them, know where they stand academically, we've now inserted weekly quizzes, which are made up of USMLE style questions. So we're preparing students ultimately for USMLE. We're using quizzes that are comparable, and that if students aren't getting the questions answered, aren't getting the answers correct, they have an opportunity to meet with the faculty who could review the material with them. We also utilize Turning Point in the classroom, and this is great technology. So when when the faculty member is lecturing, he will shoot out questions electronically to all the students who have their laptops there, and they have to answer the question. And depending upon how many get it correct, the faculty member will either move on or review the answer again to make sure that the students understand the material. So the technology really is driving the quality of the education that you're receiving. So traditional curriculum, you see it here. It's been one of the things that I will say is that, one of our accreditors, ACCM, has adopted the LCME standards. LCME is the Liaison Committee of Medical Education. LCME is the group that actually accredits U.S. medical schools. And our accreditors adopted the LCME standards, both as written and as applied. And we're constantly being reviewed by our accreditors, whether it's our clinical department, our clinical affiliations that are being site visited periodically throughout the year, or it's our basic science program. And we recently actually went through a full review by our accreditor. We had to submit a substantial database document, as well as self-study and supporting documents. It was thousands of pages long. And they had determined that we had 0 sites. It was probably one of the best reviews I've ever had over the 40 years I've been in academia. I mean, to have an accreditor say that there are no sites, and they really have deemed us comparable to what you would expect if you attend a U.S. school, you can't ask for a better accreditation. So they recognize the quality of the academic institution. They recognize the academic program. They recognize the caliber and the quality of the faculty. The standards that we have all are absolutely outstanding, and we're really happy about that. One of the things that I'd like to do is bring Dr. Tendai onto the call, because he was a former student, but he also came back after he finished his academic program between starting his residency, and he was able to work with our faculty and teach in ICM and anatomy. And maybe give your experiences in St. Kitts and also talk a little bit about teaching ICM and anatomy.
Thank you, President Ross. It definitely was an amazing experience being able to come back as a teaching faculty once I'd completed the program. It's such an amazing experience being able to be side to side with the very same professors that taught you anatomy from day one, and being able to work in the anatomy labs and build such strong friendships in the anatomy labs, whilst utilizing the tools that were given to us by UMHS, being able to come back as a faculty member and also give back to the UMHS community and be able to dissect and teach in the anatomy labs is such a wonderful experience for me. Just to give a bit of a background, I always had a love for anatomy since the first semester. I ended up being a teaching assistant for anatomy for subsequent semesters. For about 4 semesters after that, I was a teaching assistant in the anatomy labs as a student. Did I know that a few years back I'll be back teaching in the anatomy labs? I never knew that was going to be part of the plan. But it's so amazing how those small learning experiences can come back full circle and be very useful, both in giving back the knowledge to the students and also in deepening and acquiring my knowledge as myself too. When you put together what you learn in the anatomy labs and in physical diagnosis, one of the nice things about the curriculum is that when you're dissecting the heart and the lungs, you're also learning about physical examination skills for the heart and the lungs. So once you're able to understand where the various structures are, and then at anatomical landmarks, you're able to utilize these skills in the simulation labs when you're learning your physical examination skills. Therefore, being able to come and also help students refine their physical examination skills was something that was very, very useful for me in strengthening my backbone and knowledge, and being able to see the very same students apply that knowledge in the anatomy labs and be able to build those essential communication skills that are very important in building up that therapeutic relationship between the student and the patient. It's something that our school definitely prides in being able to allow students to learn the importance of great communication with their patients, not only in a typical normal situation, but also in navigating difficult situations or difficult communication situations. So one thing you'll find is that the approach that UMHS takes in terms of learning for the students, it goes through a holistic, full approach to not only understand the science, but also to understand the art of medicine, which is very, very important. At the end of the day, it's very important to know the information, but it's also important to be able to interact with your patients in a humanly manner, to be able to connect with your patient also too. When I came back as a faculty member, I also had the opportunity to interact and teach students both in semester 1 in physical diagnosis and anatomy, and also in the neuroclinical skills and intro to clinical medicine 1. By the time students progress into the subsequent semesters, they're able to refine their knowledge and also utilize their knowledge in different aspects. So it's very exciting when I finally get a chance to see the students in their 4th semester or 5th semester in Intro to Clinical Medicine 1, where they're able to now start applying the pathology, the pharmacology, and also the basis of physiology also too, in terms of the understanding of pathology and understanding of medicine also too. When it comes to the simulation lab, that's definitely one of the highlights of the islands for sure, because you're able to have access to very high fidelity simulation tools, such as the iStan also too, and also as Harvey also too, where you can listen to various different heart sounds. This is such a useful skill that's very important to be able to refine your knowledge. This picture here, actually, when it comes to the simulation lab, the person at the head of the table is the one basically who is running, let's say, a rapid response. And this is the same kind of training you're going to get in residency also too, because whenever you arrive at a situation with a rapid response, there has to be a leader. So whenever I see this picture, I see the student doctor standing at the head of the table, it's always gives me memories of some of the situations that I go through in the hospital, and being able to apply some of these key concepts that I was able to learn while on the island also too. The interesting part is that as you go on through your semesters at UMHS, you're building up this cabinet, this big chest of like knowledge that you're accumulating along the way. And as you start to practice medicine in your clinical semesters, you're going to start to pick and choose when to apply certain knowledge. And that's one thing I found very, very useful as a UMHS student and as someone who's currently in residency, is being able to think about my past experiences and how that have shaped me to the person I am today. Throughout each semester, UMHS does pair you with the faculty. So I had the opportunity to be a faculty advisor for students while I was there. So it was definitely exciting being able to not only share my experiences, but also to give advice to students going forward. You have the opportunity to be very close with your professors. They're very accessible. You also have the opportunities to interact with learning specialists also too. What you find is UMHS is giving you a multitude of resources to help you succeed. Our partnership with Kaplan, having access to Kaplan question bank and Kaplan material from a very early onset of our education, gives us a step ahead to be able to have exposure to USMLE style questions from a very, very early onset in our education. So what you'll find is that we are trying to make sure our students are not only prepared to, one, interact with patients in a hospital environment, but we also want our students to be prepared for the board exams. And the nice thing with the approach that our school takes with this is that this is going to go hand in hand in allowing for our students to be able to work on both of these key essential skills that will allow you to practice medicine in America and be a good physician at the end of the day. It's always nostalgic for me, I must say, to look at these images and pictures, because I had the great opportunity to be in this environment as a learner, student. Some of you and most of you are going to be in this position very soon, and to also come back as a faculty and teach besides the very same professors that taught me a lot of the things that I know and practice today. So it's something to definitely look forward to be able to be in that environment around your peers and be able to work towards to be a medical doctor.
Thank you, Tendai. So, what else sets us apart from other schools? And one of the things that I really like about the way we've structured the program is that we allow students to have full access to the two premier review programs from the day they start medical school. And that means that you have full access to both Kaplan and AMBOSS, and you have access to their question banks, their content, their video series, and they really help jumpstart your education, and you should utilize that all the way through the basic science program. But in addition to that, we're affiliated with the National Board of Medical Examiners. So throughout the basic science program, you're sitting for shelf examinations. These are the same examinations that students sit for if they attended a U.S. medical school, and they're made up of questions, USMLE style questions. And MBME is a group that actually develops the United States medical licensing examination. And we're both very closely connected with them. In fact, I had a very lengthy meeting with them yesterday, and they're going to be more engaged with both our basic science program and our review program up in Maine. So there'll be more NBME involvement as the institution continues to develop their review programs. So we're using at least a minimum of 9 shelf examinations per semester, and we're always increasing that amount. And what I like about it is it's the same questions that you would see on USMLE. And the more that you take of this, the better prepared you are. So you understand what the level of the questions are and the quality of the questions that you should expect. And also for anybody who has test-taking anxiety, the more times you take these type of examinations, the better off you're going to be and the less anxiety you'll have by the time you sit for USMLE. One of the things that I wanted to bring in another speaker is Kirthi. Kirthi was a person who also is a graduate, is currently in a surgery residency, originally started
Okay.
at the
President
program.
Ross?
Hey, Kirthy, how you doing?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good. It looks like you just got out of surgery.
I'm still at work, yeah. We were in the OR till about 7, and then I hopped on like about half an hour late. Or like maybe 20 minutes. Well, right when you were talking about anatomy, and I was like, oh, my home.
So, Kirthy, a couple things that I'd like you to talk about.
Yeah, for sure.
We haven't even mentioned accelerated review program. This is a program that was designed and developed for students who need to build a stronger foundation, that they took all the prerequisites. They were ready to start medical school, but we wanted to build up on their foundation to ensure that they're going to be successful, both successfully academically and pass all their USMLE examinations. And then you can talk little bit about also your experiences with anatomy, because you came back, you were in anatomy, you did some work in ICM, and maybe also talk about the island, what it was like to live on St. Kitts and your home away from home. So I'm going to let you talk a little bit about that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everyone. I'm glad you could make it today to learn a little bit about UMHS. My name's Kirthy. I'm currently a second-year resident at Detroit Sinai Grace Hospital. I went to UMHS about, what, 5, 6 years ago now, and it was a great experience. I loved it. I'm from Canada. I went to the University of Guelph for my undergraduate studies in human kinetics. After that, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Obviously, medicine was kind of on the back burner. It was in my mind, but I wasn't ready to commit the time that it takes to, be a medical student. So it took a few years. I actually worked first for 3 years before applying to medical school. I traveled. I have no regrets for taking that break. It's what I needed, I think, in order to be able to fully dedicate myself to medical school. I traveled for a few months, and then after that, I just didn't want to go back to work. I was like, all right, it's time. Let's try applying to medical school. Found UMHS. One of my anatomy professors actually had been to UMHS and to the campus and said they have a great anatomy facility. And the University of Guelph is one of those schools in Canada where you can actually dissect as an undergrad. So that was something that I was passionate about. And so I saw their anatomy lab when I was interviewing, and I was like, okay, this is the place I want to be. So I applied and I got it.
Kirsty, just for a second, I
Yeah.
just talked to Lorraine at
Oh,
Guelph,
yeah.
and she wants to set up a potential anatomy program at UMHS for Guelph students.
Wow, that would be amazing.
So there's some opportunities there too. So I just want, sorry, I didn't mean to butt in.
Very cool. No, the anatomy facility is excellent, but I'll talk about that a little later. Back to where I was. So I applied, I interviewed, and I actually was accepted into the ARP program. So that's the Accelerated Review Program. It's a 4-month program before you actually get into the medical school, which I think was perfect for me. I had been out of school for 3 years at this point. I didn't study for those 3 months, for those 3 years, sorry, at all. Hadn't written a test. So going straight into medical school, I think this was what I needed to, one, relearn how to study, relearn how to take a test, because studying and taking a test is not something that you're naturally, I think, good at. I think that's something, it's a skill that you develop and you learn and you figure out what works best for you. And the ARP program truly provided me the opportunity to figure what worked out for me. And especially, from undergrad studying to medical school studying, it's different. So it gave me a chance to sample every single subject you take in the medical school in the 2 years. If you're basic sciences, you get a snapshot of it. You get about 2 weeks, sorry, or a week introduction. You learn basically the material you'd learn in the first week of the program of the course. So for example, we did medical terminology, we did embryology, we did immunology, we did anatomy, we got a taste of the anatomy lab. We did every single subject. We got a little snapshot. Not only that, we got to meet the professors. We got to understand their teaching styles, what kind they expect. So it really learning all of that, having the opportunity to relearn how to take tests and find out my skills before starting the medical program, I think really helped me succeed in the program. There's two options of programs you can also get. You can do the med program or the EBS program, and it's the exact same material you learn. It's just a little spread out. So one you take 4 courses a semester, one you take 5. It's just or I think it's 4 semesters versus 5 semesters, which 1 semester, 4 months, really no difference. And that's more of a personal decision that you can make at the time when you're applying. But it's nice that there are these options available, and at the end of the day, it's not a race. It's a marathon. You want to be the best version of yourself. You want to succeed. You want to make sure you know and you understand what the material entails. You don't want to just get by. You want to succeed. And I think UMHS does a really good job in helping us try to succeed, because at the end of the day, you want to do right by your patient. You want to be the best version of yourself. So that's kind of my pathway to getting into UMHS. Other than that, I also came back. I was also TA like Tenda. He was actually my TA when I was in EBS 1, which is kind of cool. And then when he was on the island, he went back to teach first, and then I went back after. And I also taught anatomy, and the anatomy lab is just such a cool place. They do a really good job to really integrate everything you learn. There's one thing learning from a textbook. Yeah, you can read and read, but there's another thing to actually see it, to kind of put everything together. And the way the curriculum is set up, they really integrate everything. So if you're learning about the heart and histology, and the heart in what else do we take? Cell bio in our first semester. They also make sure that we're learning about anatomy, the heart during that time. So everything's integrated, so you can really like piece all the pieces together, which is really nice, and I think helped solidify the material when you're learning it. Other than that, all the teachers are phenomenal. They just care. They really care, and they want you to do the best that you can. It's not a malicious type of place where it's competitive. They just want you to succeed and be a good doctor at the end of the day. So that's another thing that's really, I think, unique and special about UMHS. And then island life, I was born and raised in Canada. I've traveled, of course, but going to the island, I had already applied and been accepted to the program before ever actually visiting the island. So I was very intimidated, but it's very well set up, very safe. I lived my first semester in a place called Frigate Bay. I stayed at the Marriott just because I wanted to kind of, learn the lay of the land before deciding where I wanted to live. I ended up living right beside campus, and I walked to school every day, which was great. Now there's a bridge to help us walk through this one area, which is really nice. I think President Ross helped build that, or initiated that building, but it's great. Our campus is so beautiful. Like, that's the one thing I miss the most. Just waking up and having a view of the ocean and having a view of the mountains. It's beautiful. It just puts you in a good mood when you wake up in the morning. You can go and study. Like, look at that view. I don't know. Right now I wake up and I look at a bush. Like, it's sad. And actually I look at snow right now, but that's just it's breathtaking. And it just, you finish an exam, you can be kind of happy, maybe a little sad, but you walk out and you're like, okay, fine, it's all gonna be okay.
If it
So
makes you feel any better, Kirthi, it's 10 o'clock getting there at night here. We're 78 degrees, the palm trees are blowing, and I got a nice view of the Atlantic Ocean. I just wanted to let you know,
nice.
just for you.
All right. All
I
right. Don't rubbing it in.
Side note, I came to work this morning at 5 a.m. and I saw a possum in our parking lot. So that was weird. I don't know. That was just a story I felt like sharing, because I didn't tell anyone that story because I've been in the OR all day. But uh the view is nice, is great. The island is a phenomenal place. It's very safe, and our school does a good job on having buses. So I was the type of person, I mentioned in the group chat when someone asked a question, I couldn't really study at home, and I kind of liked to keep that a little separate. I prefer to study on campus, and they do a good job having buses that'll pick you up from where you need, from like right in front of your place, and take you to school, and then drop you back right in front of your place. So if you're nervous about walking or anything, that's something that was really nice. I lived walking distance to school, but after like I'd stay on campus till 11 p.m. to the last bus. And I didn't really want to walk home at that time if I was alone, so I would just take the bus that was available and it's included in our tuition. So that's a really nice option that they have. And it's very easy to set up if you're if it's off hours of the school schedule, you just, you can send a text and everyone's very accommodating, which is nice. Other than that, I think that's all I have to say right now. Did I answer everything, President Ross?
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Kirthi.
No problem.
So the only two things that we haven't covered with regards to at least the basic science program, we talked a little bit about the facilities. We talked a little bit about housing. We have a beautiful housing market. We have a housing department that will help place you. It's a very safe location. We have a really great relationship with the government, the people of the country. There's lots of beautiful things to do on the island, from hiking to volleyball to snorkeling, some great restaurants, supermarkets that are comparable to what you'd find in the United States. It really is a wonderful place to live. I've been down there since 1983 when we established Ross University School of Veterinary Medicine. I have a great relationship with the country, with the people, and I just feel very, very comfortable being down there. So it's very safe and gorgeous. You can see some of the pictures. And this picture right here is my favorite restaurant on the island. It's called Marshall's. If you decide to come to our school, you got to go there. You got to say, Marshall, Warren sent me here, and he'll take care of you. It's the best restaurant on the island. Anyway, two other things that we didn't cover was there's a global health program that we have. The university supports it. We send our students around the world. Primarily, it's been Central America, where they go to underserved areas with a team of doctors, with a internationally recognized group of physicians to work in these very underserved communities. And it really is a altering experience for students to go to these locations. In some instances, some of these people have never even met or seen a doctor. So your experience really is altering. And then the only other thing that we didn't mention was research opportunities on the island. And one of the nice things about UMHS, it's not just about teaching, but there's also research opportunities. And getting engaged in research can also help you in terms of your residency. It adds to your CV. And Craig, maybe you could talk a little bit about research, and then I'll move on to the fifth semester. Craig, are you still there?
Sorry.
Oh, yes, I am sorry. Oh, correct.
Yeah, Craig.
I got you.
Craig, can you talk a little bit about research?
Yes, sorry about that. I was having a minor glitch with my network. There we go. Sorry about that, everybody. Research at UMHS. So, as part of your medical career, you will be involved at research at some point. And everybody thinks that means that you're going to be standing at a bench. Everybody has this concept of research like graduate school, like a master's degree. And the first thing that we have to get through when we talk about research at medical school is the difference in expectation and the difference of the process. So I got a PhD. So research was a big part of my life for a long time, 7 years, counting my master's degree. So what does that mean? For me, research was an activity that took 2,000 hours a year in the lab, plus about another 1,000 hours a year outside the lab. So do you have that time as a medical student? No, absolutely not. You're putting your time to the medical curriculum. The average medical student in the United States can do no more than about 500 hours of research. Usually you're looking at about 6 weeks of time over a couple of summers where you can produce some research material. So that's a very different expectation. So how do we make that worthwhile? We have to make research something that's integrated into the basic sciences, things that you have to learn and become masters of anyway. So what are you going to do in the basic sciences? Like we've talked about in our courses, we have anatomy, immunology, genetics, behavioral sciences, biochemistry, physiology. All of these are disciplines that you're going to become masters in while you're in the basic sciences. So research has to be integrated into those areas. How do we do that with the time that you have available? So, like I've said, I'm an immunology professor. Getting students involved in research with me usually would look like immunology or genetics. What can we do? Well, we're not going to discover a new gene. We don't have that kind of time. We're not going to sequence the human genome. That took 20 years. So what can we do? You want to be a clinical practitioner. That's what you want at the end of your medical degree. So we make research focused on what clinicians are going to do. Most of what clinicians are going to do is going to be involved in literature. You're going to have to continually be updating yourself. In fact, there's an aspect of your medical career called CME, continuing medical education. It's something that you're going to have to maintain forever. That means that you're going to always be in the literature. You're always going to be going to conferences. You're always going to look at presentation, or you're always going to have another course to do. Research kind of looks like that as well. So instead of thinking about slaving away at your bench for 2, 4, 6,000 hours, think about it. What's an area of medical science that's rapidly updating right now? Well, for me, one of the things that's really interesting is autoimmune disease. So as Sean said when we began, I got to get a new picture. Well, if you go back 6 months ago, I had that beard and I had that hair. What's with the change? I have an autoimmune disease. I'm actually allergic to my own hair, and most of it's fallen out. And so autoimmune disease is something that we think about in some contexts. You hear like rheumatoid arthritis. You might not know that's an autoimmune disease. Or there's current research that's just coming out at the end of the last year that's looking at Parkinson's disease, saying Parkinson's may have an autoimmune component that's specifically related to gut microbes. So things that naturally live in your intestinal tract. That's not something that a lot of clinicians are going to know unless they're very active in that field. Basically, unless they're a rheumatologist, they're not going to know that. What could you as a medical student do? This is the kind of thing that you're learning about right now as you go through immunology, as you go through pathology. So imagine if you wrote a short publication, a short article that's talking about the latest and greatest advances inside of an area. That's called literature review. If you include that with new data, let's say you've got 2 or 3 different groups who've published data in a specific area. Well, they don't necessarily talk to each other, but you've seen all their data. You can reanalyze data from large groups of individuals and publish conclusions that the individual groups couldn't find themselves. That's called a meta-analysis. Those are some very high-level areas of research that medical students can get involved in. As you move into your clinical practice, in your rotations, as you start thinking about your residency, every hospital has research directors. Every hospital has a division of clinical research. Most hospitals get involved in clinical trials. A lot of residents get involved in clinical trials. Your attendings will get involved in these kinds of projects. They're always going to be looking for people who can analyze data, who can write, who can put together a presentation that you could present at a conference. All of that is a scholarly activity that you can include for research on your applications. The most important thing that I can tell you about research in particular is think about where you want to go in your own career. Think about the things that you want to get involved in. Because a lot of people say they want to do research, they want to get involved in it, and they'll come to me and they'll say, oh, I need this, I've got to have it because everybody tells me it's great for my CV. And then there's nothing worse than feeling like you have to force yourself to do something that you're not really personally invested in. So think about where you want to go in your career. Think about the kinds of things that are really interesting to you right now and see how you can contribute to them and fit them into the things that you're already doing. So we're very successful at UMHS over the last 4 or 5 years. Even though we're a smaller boutique school, smaller faculty, student population, we've put out over 40 publications since 2020. We're active in a number of areas. We do have laboratory facilities that we are bringing back online from COVID, shut down most actual wet research that occurred in the world up until even into 2023. So the opportunities to get involved in research in the basic and the clinical sciences are diverse. They can be very personalized, and they don't have to be these monumental projects that you might have envisioned from undergraduate or graduate school.
Thanks, Craig. So after students complete the basic science program, they transition to our 5th semester program in Maine, where they take Introduction to Clinical Medicine 2, where they fine-tune their clinical skills. They're mentored by, a large number of MDs, practitioners in the Portland, Maine location. And concurrently with that, they also are engaged in our USMLE review program. We're one of the few offshore medical schools that have their own review program designed in conjunction with UMHS and Kaplan, and we've integrated clinical material from ICM into that because the USMLE is more clinically oriented than it was in the past, and we cover all the high yield areas. And what happens is that the students at the beginning of the semester take a diagnostic examination that lets them know what their strengths and weaknesses are, and we could individually plan and work with the students to improve their performance. And then at the end, they sit for a final examination, which is comparable to USMLE Step 1. And then once they pass that semester, they complete the semester, then they sign up for USMLE Step 1. 2 months into post-Kaplan, they sit for the National Board Examination, the Comprehensive Basic Science Examination, and as one more way to determine if they're ready to sit for Step 1, if their performance is not where they want it to be. They work with our learning specialists. They continue to sit for self-examinations created by MBME until they're ready so they can perform at a very high level and pass the USMLE on the first attempt. We are now actively involved in reviewing the 5th semester, and we've had some recommendations for improvements to the program, which we are considering right now. So in the future, we may integrate into the 5th semester the utilization of AMBOSS as well as UWorld in addition to Kaplan, which we already are utilizing. So it will be probably what I consider to be the most robust review program of all the Caribbean medical schools. I was one of the first to actually integrate a review program at Ross into the review, and I'm a believer that it really helps students succeed and perform at the highest level for Step 1. So Kirthi, maybe you can talk a little about your experience, and also Tendai, you can talk about your experience with the 5th semester and how that prepared you to transition into clinical program. Because the key part is not only passing USMLE, is that you're going now to a teaching hospital affiliated with US medical schools. How did you feel? How prepared did you feel? And did you feel that you were comparable to your US counterparts?
For sure. First off, I think the 5th semester is such a unique program that I don't think many schools offer at all. Not only do you get to prep for USMLE, which is a stressful time, but you get to kind of start thinking about changing your mindset a little bit. Okay, I have this exam, but what's next after this exam? Now I'm starting this next part of medical school, which is clinical rotations. And it's not like you're being thrown into clinical rotations. This is kind of like a little bridge to clinical rotation. So you can already start changing your mindset because it is different. It's not going to school every day and sitting down, listening to lectures. Now you're out in the field. You have to, you have to see patients, you have to learn how to interact with them. And we talk to people every day. You think it comes naturally, but taking a history is actually an art. There are certain questions that you ask, there's a certain way to ask questions. And I think the Introduction to Clinical Medicine Part 2 or ICM2 in Maine really just helps fine tune those skills. As Tindai said, when we're on the island, we start learning our clinical skills, but it's like this duffel bag full of tools. And now in ICM2, you get to start picking out what tools you like to use, like how you like to ask specific questions. And you actually practice your history taking and writing notes, and you actually practice taking history and presenting physical exams in front of other physicians. So there's I can't remember what this component, standardized patient encounters. That's what it's called. Sorry. We actually, that basically what that is there'll be these standardized patients. And when I tell you these patients are amazing actors, I would think that everything they're saying is real. They act the part. They'll come in, they'll say, oh, they have chest pain. They'll really act it out. And you have to take a full history. You have to do a full physical exam. And then another person in the room is watching you do all this, and then they will kind of do a presentation of the case, just like how we would do if we saw a patient and had to report it to our attending. And then these physicians give us feedback. They critique our physical exam, they critique our history taking, they critique our presentation. And so helpful. All this information is so valuable because, when you're in clinical rotations, this is not something that you've ever really done before. Now you have people watching you. So A, it helps you alleviate some anxiety, and B, you can kind of, feel a little bit more confident. I think in every aspect of in medicine, you're always going to have a little bit of imposter syndrome. I don't think there's anything to completely remove that. And if you don't, well, I'm really happy for you. But I think ICM2 just does a really good job in like helping us prepare so that we can, alleviate that a little bit and feel like we belong. Especially, being a Caribbean student, we can sometimes feel imposter syndrome, but I promise you, like I did not feel that I was inferior. If any way, I felt kind of a little lucky because I felt that I was prepared going into clinical rotations.
I second to this too, and agree with Kirti. The fifth semester is definitely the highlight of the program at UMHS, and it really does give you an opportunity to bring all the skills you've learned while also having the opportunity to review and get ready for the USMLE Step 1, but also sharpening those clinical skills and also being able to get the complete picture and be able to have interaction with the patient, be able to think about and the critical thinking skills, building up that knowledge to be able to think about diagnostics you're thinking about ordering for that patient. And you have to also be able to explain why you want to get certain diagnostics and be able to facilitate teach back with the patient, being able to also educate the patient to why you want to get the diagnostic tests and be able to communicate to your patient in layman's terms to allow that therapeutic relationship with your standardized patient. So within that encounter, by the time you complete that, you're able to come up with 3 differentials or differential diagnoses and be able to explain why you think these are the pertaining causes for this patient coming to see you today. And you also have the opportunity to work on documenting a note regarding your patient experience also too. Within about 20 minutes, you write a note. And I think this is a very good way of being able to start to build up those skills of documentation. That's a very important skill to build up as you pertaining going through your medical education, because as a resident physician, I'm sure Kirti can second on this, we write a lot of notes during the course of our day. So being able to build up those skills early are very, very important. I think this semester, whilst in Poland, Maine, really does a good job preparing you for the clinical rotations going ahead. You will have the opportunity to rotate with different medical students from all walks of life, be it Caribbean medical students and US medical students also too, during your clinical rotations. And one thing that I realized and noticed is that upon arriving, you are comparable and ready to tackle your clinical rotations. And this is all because of the foundation that has been set by ICM2, allowing you to be very prepared to, on day one on a clinical rotation, to be able to walk into a patient's room, take a good history, take a good physical examination, come up with differentials, think about diagnostics, and be able to come up with a really good presentation to your attending doctor and be able to show and showcase your skill set as a medical student. So there's no doubt that once you complete the semester, you're going to be, one, ready to prepare and tackle the USMLE Step 1, and also, two, be able to have that very important transition into your clinical semesters.
If I could tag in on that one for just 1 second. I'm going to share a quick little story because so I teach genetics while I'm on the island. And this ability of being able to talk to patients, about being able to explain what you are seeing, about being able to order diagnostic tests, that cannot be overstated. And you think that that's going to be something that doctors just get good at and doctors just know how to do. That's a skill. That's a trained skill that you have to acquire, and not everybody does that. So my dad and I both have a clotting disorder. And to get diagnosed for that, you have to order a specific genetic test. And it's absolutely standard. It's a type of test that I teach myself in my own class. I even use my own results as my teaching aid for it. So it's an absolutely bread and butter technique. You're going to get tested on it on the USMLE. So my test results came back to my family physician, who's an older guy, who got the report, read down through it, looked at me in the room and said, I don't really know the interpretation of this result, but you are positive for it, so you have the clotting disorder. And I thought, how embarrassing for him that he had to say that to me, particularly given that I teach the class that he's telling me that he can't do for med school, but also how little confidence would you have at this point as a patient where that's your physician encounter? So all of these things that we teach you in the Introduction to Clinical Medicine 1, the Introduction to Clinical Medicine 2, before you ever get into your rotations or your residency, those are skills that cannot be overstated how important they're going to be to you as a physician. And the fact that that exists in our main semester, and that's something unique to us, I think gives you a tremendous advantage over other alternatives.
Thanks, Craig. So after you complete the 5th semester, pass USMLE, you transition to a clinical program. We currently have clinical affiliates in United States, Canada, and Puerto Rico. And as you can see from this list, we have approximately 26 hospitals that we're currently affiliated with in these various regions, and we're always looking to expand our clinical programs. Right now, we're looking to expand in Illinois and additional hospitals in California, as well as Florida and Georgia. So we're always looking for alternatives, and Louisiana. So there's plenty of opportunities for you. And your 3rd year, you'll be taking core rotations. Those core rotations are surgery, OBGYN, pediatrics, family medicine, psychiatry. And you have to go to our affiliate hospitals. We're contractually affiliated with these hospitals. They teach to our curriculum. There are preceptors. And then for your elective year, you could either choose to remain at these hospitals, or go to any other teaching hospital throughout the United States, as long as you coordinate with our clinical department and our dean. What's nice about the clinical program is that in terms of electives, it gives you opportunities to go to hospitals that you're interested in doing your residency at. And you can showcase yourself. So what does that mean? So most residency directors get thousands and thousands of applications from unknown individuals. If you actually go to the hospital, meet the residency directors, actually get to interact with those individuals who are in a position to hire, it gives you a leg up over everybody else. And you kind of showcase that. You show how dedicated, how hard you work, what's your motivation like, how intelligent you are. And at the end of the day, that really has a significant impact on our students and their ability to obtain a residency. And last year, 92%, over 92% of our students obtained residency. And what's unique about Puerto Rico is that many of our graduates were actually offered residencies outside the match. They didn't even have to go through the match program. The hospitals liked them so much, they offered them the positions directly. Maybe Kurt, the attendee, you could talk a little bit about your abilities to obtain a residency, what you went through, and both of you landed premier residency spots. So maybe you could talk about that process for yourself.
I think applying to residency, no matter what your CV looks like, is just a daunting experience. You obviously want to match, and there's fears. However, I think having the opportunity to do these audition rotations, for me personally, it helped. Not to say that it's mandatory. It's definitely not. For example, I don't think Tendai did any audition rotations that when he was applying for IM. However, for me, I had the opportunity to set up some rotations. For example, I set up one here at DMC Sinai Grace, and I'm glad I did, because not only are we like looking for to match, however, we want to see if we're a good fit in the program too. We're allowed to be a little picky too, and I thought for me, it gave me an opportunity to showcase myself, but also see would I fit in here? Do I think I'll be able to grow here? Do I like how I fit in with the other residents here? So it was really nice for me to experience different programs and see how I would fit in there. And that can help you when you're applying and doing your rank list. At the end of the day, a match is a match. So like wherever you match, it's amazing to match in general. But I think being able to do these audition rotations is definitely something that's beneficial, especially when you're looking into programs like surgery or OB that are a little bit more difficult to kind of obtain. So that's kind of my experience with it, and I'm happy I did audition rotations.
I had the opportunity to rotate at various different hospitals. And one of the nice things about our clinical program is that at some of these different hospitals that you're rotating at, they will have a residency program in that specific specialty. So when I was rotating, I always knew I wanted to do internal medicine. So I definitely made it a habit. If I was at a hospital, I'll let them know that I'm interested in internal medicine, and I'll be applying the subsequent year. And in working with the residents, I had opportunity to work with the associate program directors and be on their teams. So it really does give you that exposure. And I definitely agree with what President Ross said. It's very important for you to be seen, as these programs will get up to 1,000 applicants or more. Being able to be seen, they get to see your work ethic, they get to see how you interact with patients, they get to see how you interact with the residents also too, allowing for them to notice you and get a sense if you're a good fit for the program. And on the other side of things, you get to get a sense if that program is a good fit for you also too, because that's also important. You are also making a decision regarding whether that program is a good fit for you. So it's very important to get exposed, I would say, to as many programs as you can. And I do definitely agree that it's important to do audition rotations in your fourth year, especially at programs that you are going to be interested in. It just gives you the opportunity to get more interviews and also to get a sense of, is this a hospital that I see myself working at? Do I like the culture within the residency program also too? within the big picture scheme of things, also too, with a strong application, you're able to be seen by programs that you may have not ever rotated at, or in states that you've never been to. For me, I matched at a university program in Philadelphia. I'd never been to Philadelphia, funny enough. And the funny thing is that I remember during my interview, they asked me which team I supported. And they are a big, obviously, Eagles fan culture. We just won the Super Bowl, so everyone is still kind of on that high regarding that. But I remember mentioning that I was a Cowboys fan. So that was very interesting during that opportunity when I had the interview. But one thing I definitely will say is that I never knew that the experiences that I've had at UMHS are going to play such a big pivotal role in the bigger picture of things, because ultimately I matched at this program that has a clinical educator track that allows me to have the same interactions now teaching medical students in various different courses for the medical students. And I was not able to do that if I wasn't a teaching assistant at UMHS. If I came back to coming back to UMHS and applying during that time really helped demonstrate my keenness and my dedication to medical education. So you never know where those small experiences that you're having along the way, how they'll make a big difference in making you stand apart from your other applicants that are out there. So one thing I'll say is the work you're doing that might be in the dark is going to be one day seen and appreciated. So just continue to work hard and keep knocking on those doors, because UMHS will give you the tools to succeed. It's up to you to just keep knocking on the doors and waiting for it to happen.
Thank you, Tendai. So I think we've covered a lot of material, probably more than you wanted to know, but we've covered a lot. So we've covered clinical program, basic science program, 5th semester, licensure, faculty, and now I think and facilities in St. Kitts. I think that we're now going to move over to admissions. I saw a number of questions related to admissions, so I'm going to let Sean take over, and then we'll wrap this up. So Sean, it's all yours.
All right. Thanks, President Ross. Can you hear me?
Yes.
It wasn't sure it was coming through there. I think from what Dr. Marume said before we jump into admissions, I think the other thing that to be taken away from his comments is that honesty is the best policy. He went into a room full of rabid Eagles fans and told them that he was a Cowboys fan, and he still got the position. So that's a good lesson for everyone out there. Answer honestly, and you will still be rewarded. So, all right. So obviously we have gone through quite a bit of information about the university. We're pretty far into the presentation, so thank you for sticking around with us. So at this point, really what you want to hear about is how to get in and how to become a student like Dr. Marume, Dr. Suganathavan. So the admissions process, we do have an online application. It's right there at umhs.org. Very simple, easy to fill out. And we can also accept a PDF copy of the application that you submitted to one of the major application services. So that would be AMCAS, ACOMAS, TMD, the Texas Medical Dental Application Service, TMD SAS, or also OMSAS for our friends up in Ontario. So if you have a copy of the PDF submission that you made, if you have a PDF copy of the submission that you made through one of those application services, you can submit that and it will serve as your UMHS application. You would just choose the appropriate pathway on our website, again, umhs.org. In order to be considered for admission, you need to have completed at least a minimum of 90 undergraduate credits, and that's fairly standard across the United States. And we do that for those you don't know, typically 120 is the threshold for a four-year degree. Some schools 124, 128, but 90 is a good round number to indicate you've completed at least 3 years of undergraduate education. We do still expect, and most of our students do follow through and complete their senior year and earn their bachelor's degree. You do need to have completed the standard slate of pre-med prerequisite courses that you would typically be familiar with if you're in a pre-med track at your undergraduate institution, or if you're completing courses on a one-off basis if you've come back to medicine. You can go to our website at any point after this evening and take a look, but it looks like this. You need 1 year of basic biology with lab. You need 1 year of basic chemistry or introductory chemistry with lab. You need 1 year of organic chemistry with lab. And I know that some places the curriculum is such that organic chemistry is only one semester with lab. And in those cases, we would like to see biochemistry with lab from you. You need one semester of physics. You need English. So those are the basics. That's pretty much the standard prerequisite track, again, that you would be taking at any institution. The MCAT is required if you are a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident, or if you have completed your undergraduate education in the United States. If you are Canadian or otherwise international, the MCAT is not required. I know there were a few questions that we had around that in the Q&A section. We'd like to see a resume or a CV from you. We'd like to see, what you've done to learn about the medical profession. A specific number of hours for certain things is not required. So some schools will require 500 hours of volunteering or, some other type of work. We're not going to put a set number of hours on it. We want to see that you've done something to learn about what your life is going to be like as a physician. So we want to see that you have some experience. Maybe you've done some medical assisting, maybe you've done some scribing, maybe you've done some volunteering, maybe you've done the all too elusive shadowing. It seems very hard to get shadowing these days. We hear from students all the time, and have been hearing from students for years that those opportunities have dwindled in recent years. So scribing could be a good way potentially to connect with a physician, learn a little bit about what the day-to-day is like. So we want to see that on that resume. And then, we prefer a committee letter if you have one, but if you don't have one because your school doesn't do one, or again, you are coming back and applying after going through a post-baccalaureate program or whatever the situation is that you don't have a committee letter, we will take 2 letters of recommendation from you, at least one of which should be academic in nature from someone who has taught you in the classroom, preferably in the sciences. An essay is certainly part of it. And again, if you are applying using a PDF copy of your prior application service submission, that would be included there. Once the application arrives, we process it, we communicate with you to let you know what still may be outstanding to become complete. And then from there, we do an overview to determine if you will be offered an interview. We work with the admissions committee, which is made up entirely of faculty. In order to make this happen, we have the admissions staff who are located in the U.S. We have the faculty who, of course, are located in St. Kitts. And, our goal really is to meet as many students who are applying as possible. I think many of you who are listening are aware of how difficult it is to get into med school in the U.S. We still have well over 50,000 people who are applying to medical school in the United States, and there are only around 23,000 seats in the U.S. programs. So there are a lot of people who are getting left out in the cold because there simply aren't enough seats in the programs that exist here. And we really feel that the best way to get to know somebody, to find out if they're going to be a fit in your program, is to meet with them in an interview, hear about their background, hear about their goals, hear about what they'd like to accomplish, why they're going into medicine. And I really believe that most U.S. medical schools believe that that's the right way to do things as well. But unfortunately, when you have 10 applications for every 1 seat in your program, as some medical schools do, it's just not possible to do that. We're a little bit smaller. We can do that. And we interview really 8 out of 10 applicants so we can get to know them. And then once the interview happens with a member of our admissions team, the file goes electronically to the members of our admissions committee, which again is made up entirely of faculty. They read, they vote, and they ultimately make the decision on the application. So there are a few different decisions that can come back to us from the admissions committee, and then we will transmit that decision to the student. Obviously, the first and the decision that everyone is hopeful and everyone is looking for is an acceptance. And the admissions committee makes a decision around placement. And you heard, and we had some Q&A as well around the 2 different tracks in the program: the standard 4-semester program for the basic sciences, or the 5-semester extended basic science program. The admissions committee, after a review of your academic background, will make a determination about which of those tracks you will be placed into. So that's one of the parts. It's a kind of a nuance of the acceptance. It's one of the 2 tracks. Some students will be offered a seat in the accelerated review program. You heard Dr. Suganavathan talk about the accelerated review program a little bit earlier. And again, from what you heard, it really is an opportunity to strengthen your foundation for success in the basic sciences. And students who you can apply directly to the ARP if you like. The committee will still decide if that's the right way to go for you. They may, you may not have a lot of confidence, but the committee may have more confidence in you and will discuss how they feel, where they feel you should begin. Students in the accelerated review program, as we call it, it's a 1-semester program, 15 weeks. And then so long as you pass the program, you are offered a seat. You are given a seat. A seat is held for you in semester 1 the next semester. So you don't have to reapply. And so you move seamlessly into the program. So it's been very popular with students. You have a couple of options there. Most of the students are in St. Kitts and attending the program in person. We do offer an online option for students to do the ARP. It's the only online option that we have. Once you progress into the medical program, you are in St. Kitts in person attending the program. And you can see at the bottom of the list there, denial is a reality as well. This is not open admissions, certainly. But what's great, and we do get notes back from the members of the admissions committee on each applicant, and they let us know the reason why the decision was made. And for students who are not offered admission to the program, we're able to communicate that to the student. We can let them know why the committee felt they weren't ready at this time. And we can offer them some suggestions of things that they can do to improve their candidacy. So when they submit a new application at some point in the future, they will be successful. So we like to think of it, it's a cliche, but we like to think of it as, instead of a no, we like to think of it as a not yet. And so we can offer those suggestions to students. Sometimes it's difficult and sometimes it's challenging, and sometimes people aren't as open to hearing it as they could be, and we understand that. And it's often that they will come back to us at some point in the future and say, I applied, I wasn't successful. Can you tell me what I can do to improve my candidacy? And we are able to do that because of our connection and partnership with the members of the admissions committee who are making the decisions. So from there, what do we have next? So we want to talk about, once you get in, we want to talk about how to pay for it. And so the chart here that you see, I think, is really illuminating, because it shows, and you can see the bar in blue represents UMHS tuition for the full 4-year program at just under 185,000 US dollars. And you can see how it compares to other categories of med school, whether they're US MD programs for in-state students, public programs for in-state students, out-of-state students at public institutions, in-state private institutions, out-of-state private institutions, and so on, and some of the larger Caribbean schools as well, who students are considering along with UMHS. You can see that we compare very, very favorably in terms of our tuition. Why is this? Why is the cost lower at UMHS? I mean, President Ross talked about it in his open about some of the ownership structures at other institutions. Where does the money go? In some cases, when you're part of a Fortune 500 company, money is going into shareholders' pockets. It's fairly simple. We don't have that structure at UMHS. So tuition that gets paid goes right back into the university. It's pretty simple, and that's how it works. So as far as financial aid goes, there are some different options for you, and we can show you that. Scholarships are available. Loans are available as well. The scholarships, and we'll show you a detailed breakdown on the next slide, but they are based on undergraduate GPA, and there has been a huge infusion of scholarship money over the past couple of years at UMHS, I'm proud to say, and you are automatically reviewed for scholarships at the time of your application. For loans, we work with Sallie Mae, one of the largest lenders in the United States, and some of you may be familiar with them. Loans are available for ARP and both of the tracks in the basic science program. For our friends up north in Canada, there are lines of credit available from 5 major Canadian banks, and in some cases, institutional loans will be considered for students. So one of the first contacts that you will have after acceptance or after an offer in the ARP is connection directly to the financial aid department, who will work with you on taking care of your needs as far as tuition goes. So let's go to the next slide just to show some of the scholarships, quickly. Just again, you can always find this information on our website after today. The merit scholarships at $14,000, $11,000 for the president's, and $10,000 for the provost scholarship. Number of other scholarships as well for individual, depending on if you meet individual criteria. All right, well, what else? What else do we have left at this point? Let's see, where are we? All right, from there, what we want to just kind of start to wrap up here. I see that, wow, it's 9:20 here in the Eastern US. So just kind of a quick overview and a reminder of what we've been talking about, some of the highlights of the UMHS experience and and really what all folds together to represent our value. It really comes back to what you heard from Dr. Marume, Dr. Saganavathan, who are successful in their second year of residency and again have landed really tremendous residencies, and they're certainly not alone. You can head to our website and take a look at our residency placements over the past. I think we have the last 6 or 7 years that are up there right now. We keep only the most recent years up there. They're most relevant. 92% residency placement rate. That's for first-time applicants. Which is incredible, it's just an unbelievable testament to the quality of the education at UMHS and our students' dedication, persistence, and the fact that nothing is going to stop them from achieving their goals. Comes back to President Ross's high academic standards, the focus on personalized education. You heard about the 96% student retention rate, it's just unheard of. Many of the other Caribbean institutions have much, they have very high attrition rates. Retention, obviously, the opposite. So our persistence rate is extremely high. And we hear this directly from students who are leaving those institutions and are applying here. So we're very happy to put a retention number out there, and conversely, a 4% attrition rate. It's very, very difficult. You will have a very hard time finding true attrition rates at other institutions because they just won't put it in writing. A lot of it has to do, as you heard from Dr. Michaud, from our dedicated learning specialists, our dedicated faculty like Dr. Ayer, with the education taking place on our state-of-the-art campus in St. Kitts, getting you ready to come back to the US, get ready for licensing exams, performing well on those licensing exams, and moving into your clinical rotations and clinical clerkships at our more than 20 affiliate hospitals around the US, Canada, and Puerto Rico. Again, all leading to tremendous residency placements. So in a nutshell, that is the value presented at UMHS. We've been here now for nearly 2 decades and have well over 1,500 alums who are out there practicing and carrying the flag for us. So we're very happy that you had an opportunity to join us this evening. And so really, as we begin to wrap up, what I want to show you is kind of how we wrap up your education, which is at Avery Fisher Hall in New York City. Graduation takes place there every year. So it's a wonderful way for you to bring your family and get together, get back together with your friends who may have been dispersed during clinicals. You may not have seen them since your time in St. Kitts, and get back together, spend a couple of days and celebrate this momentous achievement in your life. And for those of you that are on the webinar right now who are looking ahead at this could be you in a few short years. So if you're ready to take that next step, you can apply to UMHS today right there online at umhs.org. And again, if you've already applied to one of the major application services, you can obtain a PDF copy of that application. You can send that to us, and then that will serve as your UMHS application. So having said that, I want to thank each of our panelists for joining us this evening. Dr. Michaud, it was good to see you. Thanks so much for being on and sharing some of your thoughts with our audience.
Thank you very much. I was said earlier, but looking at the pictures, I've worked with these students now, and I think what a learning specialist does and what our entire school does, we build relationships with students. And I think that we do that very well. And we happen to educate them how to be fine doctors in the process. Thank you for the time to talk.
Thanks so much. Have a great evening, Dr. Michaud. Also, thanks to Dr. Craig Ayer. Dr. Ayer, thanks for taking some time out of your evening there on campus and sharing your insights with the audience. Thanks also for helping out in the Q&A. We certainly can't do it without your knowledge and expertise.
It is absolutely my pleasure. Thank you, everybody who could join us this evening. Thank you for taking your night with us. I guess the last thing that I want to suggest for you is we know that you're going to look at UMHS and you're going to evaluate your options for where you think is going to be your best fit. I hope that we've done an excellent job in trying to show you the things that we believe in as a school, the things that we value as educators and as administrators. And my advice to you is, as you weigh out all your options, find people who are willing to invest in you as much as you're going to invest in yourself. So find people who believe as strongly as you do about getting you to that next place where you want to go. And it is my belief that UMHS can be one of those supporters for you. So as you do your due diligence, think about all of that and think about the people who are going to get you where you've always envisioned being.
Wise words. Thanks so much, Dr. Eric. Good to see you. And certainly Dr. Suganathan, and who checked in from the hospital, Dr. Marume, who took time out of his evening, one of the few free ones that he's got. Just a few, not all that long ago. Really, you were one of the ones in the audience. So what parting words of wisdom do you have for the folks who joined us this evening?
Well, thanks so much, everyone, for staying till the end. I hope we were able to answer any questions you had. And if there's anything that we didn't answer or anything that you think of later on, please feel free. I'm sure they'll share our contact information. Don't hesitate to reach out or ask any questions. I know maybe sometimes you won't think of a question until later on, so it's totally normal. But one thing I love about UMHS is that I truly believe we're a family. The culture is just unmatched. And I think it stems down to President Ross, like shout out to him. I remember when I was starting my clinical rotations in third year, there's this new AMBOSS question bank, and we were getting closer to studying for step 2, and everyone said AMBOSS is great, and we talked to President Ross about it, and within a month, like he started rolling out to our teachers in Maine and on the island. He gave them like a trial session of AMBOSS, got their opinions, got our student opinions, and next thing we know, we have AMBOSS. Same with UpToDate. UpToDate is this app that we have that's such a resource to doctors and medical students. Mainly, every attending I know will say, hey, go look that up on UpToDate. What's the current literature saying? And all of us students have UpToDate now because we brought it up to President Ross, and he's like, I want you guys to have what you need to succeed. So stemming from our culture, someone who's really invested in us, and as I think it was Dr. Ayer who said, be somewhere where you're investing all this time, and UMHS really wants you to become the best version of yourself. So that's something that I think is amazing. But to everyone, good luck, and I hope that you get your dream residency one day and get to practice.
Thanks so much, Kirti. Have a great night. Tendai, any last thoughts?
It was a pleasure being with you all this evening, and I was once in your shoes, Kirti was once in your shoes, sitting and watching on this webinar, trying to decide what are going to be the next steps for my medical education. And it's such a surreal moment to be turned 360 and be here on this webinar, just kind of sharing my experiences that I've had as a UMHS student and as a graduate from the program. One thing I'll say, and I want you to remember, is that UMHS will give you the tools to succeed. They will give you the opportunity to realize your dreams and to ultimately realize your dreams applying to your dream resident program. So ultimately, if you have not applied, definitely it's something I would want you to highly consider, because the opportunity is waiting for you. Wish you all the best going forward. It's a pleasure talking to everyone tonight.
Thanks, Tendai. Have a great evening. Well, last but not least, this is the president's webinar. And so any final thoughts from our president, Warren Ross?
Thank you, Sean. Well, once again, I'm very excited to brag about my institution and the things that we've done and what our goals and mission has been. And it's important, I think, to go away with, what is unique about UMHS, what makes us different. And then what I love most about the institution is it's an alternative to these very large institutions. It's small, it's personalized, where you have the resources to succeed academically. You have dedicated faculty, small class size, personalized education. These are the ingredients to success and what you've heard from everybody there, that's everyone who's spoken today, is how much we care about our students, how dedicated we are to our students, that we are morally obligated to make sure these kids succeed and they achieve their goal of becoming a physician. So that's what I think really sets us apart. It's the utilization of all these various resources like Kaplan, Amboss, integration of that material into the review, utilization of USMLE questions, the faculty that are dedicated, not only dedicated to you, but also set aside time to make sure they mentor and tutor and work with you through the program, a team of learning resource specialists who can work with you all the way through the basic science into the clinical science program. That's what sets us apart from other institutions. So if this is a type of program that you're looking for and you want that small school environment where at the end of the day you're going to succeed, then UMHS is a school for you. So, and hopefully it is the school that you consider, because I would love to meet each and every one of you at some point. I do the orientation, but I also get to meet everybody and spend time with you at the first semester party, and we have a really good time. So hopefully you'll consider us. And thank you all very much for your time on this call.
All right. Have a great evening, President Ross. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Well, I want to say thanks to my colleague, Sham Daria, as well, for pulling the levers and pushing the buttons. And so thanks, Sham. And to our audience, thank you all for hanging in for a couple of hours on a Tuesday evening. As you can see on the screen, you can follow along with us if you aren't already on your favorite social media platform of choice. Speaking of that, if you're not following us on YouTube, you should. We've recorded the session this evening. If you'd like to go back and review any of the information presented, you'll be able to do so. We'll give us until sometime later tomorrow to get it up there and uploaded, but it will be there and for you to rewatch should you so desire. So you can see our general email address is there as well. You can contact us at any point. Other contact information readily available on the website at umhs.org. So I want to say thanks, everyone, for spending some time with us this evening to learn a little bit more about UMHS. Hope to see an application from you soon. Any questions that you have about the program, please contact us at any point, and I look forward to working with you through the remainder of the process. Have a great evening, everybody. Thanks for being here.